This is the time of year when coyote pups leave their dens for the first time and venture out on their own. But with that curiosity comes a lot more sightings of coyotes in urban areas. We're seeing more posts on community Facebook pages and getting more story tips. And along with that, more calls for the city to step in, trap these coyotes, and move them to a new location. But that got me wondering, is moving wildlife actually the best idea? And what happens to these animals when they're relocated? So every animal has a range that they travel. A skunk is around 10 kilometers, a coyote around 5, a wolverine around 1,500. So when it comes to moving animals, there are two categories: relocation and translocation. Relocation is when an animal is moved back to its home range, often around where it was found, maybe after an injury and rehab. Translocation is when they're moved a long distance away from their home range, maybe a deer in a construction area or an animal that was under a deck. And that's when things get tricky. Biologist Colleen St. Clair says translocation may seem like the best solution, especially for animals we consider pests, but it's rarely successful.
Across the world in the last 30 or 40 years, there have been thousands of translocations of animals. And their success ranges from 0, literally none of the animals survived, to as high as 60-70% is the top that I've read in the literature.
When it comes to translocation, generally one of three things happen. They try to get home and might be hit by a vehicle in the process, or they might be killed by another territorial animal of the same species, or they might get into a conflict with people in the new location. Coyotes specifically, St. Clair says there's limited research to go on, but based on what we know about their personalities, they don't handle it well.
Coyotes are so abundant. Any place that you move a coyote is probably already occupied by other coyotes. They're highly territorial. So what one might be doing by translocating coyotes is just sort of subjecting them to a slower, scarier, more painful kind of death.
Here at Wild North Animal Rescue, they get over 13,000 rescue calls a year. They work with all kinds of injured animals, from skunks to foxes to birds. But when it comes time to release them back into the wild, Dale Guino says each species has its challenges.
Adult animals we often try to release in reasonably close proximity to where they were found. They might have mates, they might have historical home ranges there, established territory. Juveniles that have yet to disperse is less important because they're yet to find that area to call their own for their territory, but it does really differ animal to animal.
Often people decide to take matters into their own hands, trapping that pesky squirrel or skunk wreaking havoc in their yards. People have good intentions, but the consequences can sometimes be dire.
Rather than relocating them, which is often not a great response, because not only do the animals normally not do well, and you might just be condemning them to a long, arduous death in the wild, but it's also not a great solution, because you move those animals, you're going to have other animals that are going to come in and take up that territory.
So unfortunately, there's no perfect solution to coexistence, but these experts recommend filling in any areas that an animal might be attracted to, never feeding wildlife, and educating yourself on how to live with them. Emily Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Edmonton.